battery did run out. I don't know how long I have on this battery, but I'm gonna try to finish out just really quickly that I had on the very last part of what we were talking about in the last video. So we were discussing the the plan that the elites of America, the Magogite elites of America, had for black people, black Hebrew people, in the 1930s and 40s and 50s. We discussed their programs that they used out of slavery to put us back into slavery, like the Ku Klux Klan, and then like also the Jim Crow laws. But nobody views the projects as a plan, a literal plan that was concocted in order to put us back into slavery as a people. We talked about the stock market crash, crashing the black economy that was overtaking, white America, and they had to crash the economy to make it stop. We talked about them making a safety net for the white Americans that were damaged and destroyed during this time by creating, building the projects for them to spend a few years in, gain wealth, save their money, and then go out and get a loan for a house in the suburbs. We know that these same opportunities were promised to black people, but they were not fulfilled to black people. What happened was when black people Hebrew people saw that white people were becoming comfortable coming out of the projects, they started looking at the projects as being their way out of the ghetto, right? Out of the slums that we were forced into just a generation earlier. People don't know that we are not an urban people necessarily, that we started our own towns, our own farms, and had places where we lived and other people didn't. Those places became successful, and that's why they had to destroy the economy. That's why they had to push us to the places where we were. That's why they had to make these plans to try to figure out how to stop our political, our social, our economic growth. Do you understand what I mean? And we can see these as instances in time throughout history, allowing us to know for a fact that America was created for that purpose, to house, to imprison, and to manipulate, to brainwash, and eventually execute the black American population, the Hebrew population. And so we're in the 30s and the 40s now, and we're coming back from World War II. I'm sorry. Is the food ready? Yeah. Okay, I'm coming. The boys got a little bit longer. What? The boys have a little bit longer, and give me about 10 more minutes. And I'll be out in a minute. So what ended up happening was that when black people moved into the projects, that's when they stopped being maintained. That's when they started introducing drugs. That's when they took all of the businesses from the city and moved them into the suburbs, where they now had a white suburban population by the housing policies that were implemented in the 30s, 40s, and 50s in America. See, this was racial segregation at play. This was the segregated system that they devised in order to create the concentration camps for black folks in order to poison and destroy them, in order to poison and destroy us. And so what happened was that first generation in the projects of white folks came out, the next generation with generational wealth and a house and a community. That's next generation where the white folks were leaving and black people were becoming the majority in the projects, didn't have any of those opportunities. Those opportunities were taken from the community. The jobs were taken from the community and put into the suburbs. The houses in the suburbs were not made available to black folks. In fact, by contract, they were not allowed to. I'm coming. Well, give me 10 more minutes. The houses were not allowed to be sold to black people. Look, in the government contract, it's written that the person you sell the house to that they can't, by contract, sell to a black family. So the people that designed and built and sold these houses to white folks were by contract not allowed to sell those houses unless the white family that bought the house also agreed not to sell it. Hold on, get on out of here, boys. Y'all hear me doing this video? It's by contract that that white family was not allowed to sell to a black family. By contract, you could not buy a house in the suburbs in the 40s and 50s as even a white person and do not agree to not sell to somebody black. Get off that guitar, y'all. I know y'all not done yet. Off the guitar. I know y'all not done. Nobody needs to be doing anything unless everybody's done. There's no way. Do chapter 3, please.
Yes, sir.
And I'm just going to finish this up really, really quickly so that we can get to the next sequence that we need to discuss here. And so people that were living in the projects in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s became all black. And the generation of white people that started in the projects in the 30s and the 40s became wealthy landowners, became homeowners, became the upper middle class. The same people that were wiped out in the stock market crash of 1928 were recovered by 1948. The same people who were destroyed in the market crash in 1928 were firmly entrenched in 1948 in the projects and were loving it. By 1958, more projects were being built all over the country. The New Deal established many, many, many more projects. But by 1968, the projects had been and came and were deliberately become the experimental grounds for destroying the black population when they started putting in those communities liquor stores, when they started advertising cigarettes, and when they started pumping heroin into those communities and seeing what would happen, literally watching us from these areas and experimenting on us. Do you guys know that the projects are made from runic symbols? You guys take a bird's eye look at the projects. I always knew as a kid, whenever I was going to my cousin them house in the projects, that something was weird about these places. Even as a very small little boy, I'm thinking, why are my people or our people in these bricks like this? Why are we like this? Why are we the only ones in the country that are like this? I thought in my city, I'm from a medium-sized city in Tennessee, and this was projects all through my city, and members of my family were in every single project. And every time I went to the projects to visit them, it was always all black. And I thought to myself, why in the world are we like this out here? Why aren't there any white projects? Do you see what I'm saying? I thought the projects were just in my city. I didn't know that there was other projects in other cities. I thought it was just us that lived like this. That there was projects maybe in Atlanta or some other places like that. But I didn't think that there was a project in every town. Do you see what I'm saying? I never knew until I went to Nashville, until one of my folks moved to some projects in Nashville, and we went up there to visit them. And oh my gosh, it's the same exact thing. I look like I'm in the city still, in my city. Why are there projects here too? What's the deal with these things? But just like every other Black American, I didn't pay any attention to it. Do you see what I'm saying? If you look at the projects from a bird's eye view, the projects are aligned in runic symbols. Do you guys know what runic symbols are? Have you guys ever seen the writings on the on like Viking ships that look like I's and V's and backwards K's. And, they said that these runic scripts, RUNIC, runes from rune stones. They would find these symbols on what they call rune stones, in England and in Germany, because these tribes were using these symbols not as letters or, writing, because that's not, what they're known for. They're not known for writing as a writing people. These barbarians had to be taught how to do these different things. But they did use letters and symbols to cast spells. Do you understand what I mean? Take a look at the projects from a bird's eye view in a city, and you'll find patterns in the chaos, that the projects are aligned in some ways that look like trying to spell something. Well, they are. They're trying to spell you. They're putting a spell on the inhabitants of the people. You see what I'm saying? The movie Ghostbusters, the movie, talked about, and this out of context will sound insane, because you go to a whole bunch of different places trying to explain what they're doing to us, but it's there, and you know that it's there. So the movie Ghostbusters, right? If you guys can remember Ghostbusters 1 way back in the day, the movie Ghostbusters talks about this concept of a building in New York City that was designed to be a portal for spirits. That's what Ghostbusters Part 1 is about. That the designers of this tower in downtown New York literally designed it with metal inside the building that would be conducive to controlling spirits, or a metal that was used in spell casting, demon summoning rituals back in the day. They aligned the building in a certain position so that it would be most favorable to summoning demons. They put all of these different chemicals into the whatever to make this building a channeling agent for evil spirits, right? The way that they designed this building, the way that the metals that they use, the position of the building, all done deliberately to use the building as a portal for demons to enter this world. That's what Ghostbusters 1 is about. People talk about, truth hidden in plain sight. This is how the products were built. This is why there's so much negative energy in them in certain situations, because they were built as channeling methods too. Do you understand what I'm saying? Go look at the projects on Google from bird's eye view and see if they don't look like they're trying to spell something with it, that the buildings are aligned. That's not done just randomly. That's done with a motive in mind. Do you understand what I'm saying? The project also all built, if you go look them up, in every city, they're all built next to either railroad tracks or major freeways. All of them. Do you know why? Because people thought, this is a plan B, right? People thought that one day black people would wake up and understand. I was told this back when I was in middle school, and I was like, dang. I didn't recognize it, but I recognized the significance of it, but it still tripped me out even back in the day. Dang. In the 8th grade, my buddy, he said, I bet you didn't realize that all projects are made next to railroads and freeways. And I thought about it. This project's right next to the freeway. This project's right next to the railroad tracks. There may be something to that. And I said, so why is that? And what he said that if any of these population centers began to riot, they would be able to close the community off with the railroad and then pack people into those and place them into these concentration camps. If black people got out of control in America, all of us would have lived in projects, because they would have loaded us up in trains, the Jews in Germany, Austria, and Poland. That's why All projects are next to railroad tracks. That's why all projects are next to freeways, because they are actual concentration camps themselves. The concentration camps of America, where we are experimented on, killed, manipulated, and imprisoned to this day. Do you see what I'm saying? The American public housing system is American concentration camp system. Once the first generation of white people moved out and they were allowed to move up over black people society again, then black people moved in and the trap was set. Then they took the businesses out and they put the drugs in. And since there's no jobs and this was cheap rent, they had no choice. We had no choice but to stay in the projects. And that's why right now you have but the projects. Don't know nothing, don't know life outside of the camps, the concentration camps. Do you understand what I mean? Don't know life outside of the concentration camps. This is how we know for a fact what America is. And this started in the 1920s and continues to this day. A concentration camp system for the Jews of America, where inside those concentration camps were poisoned with drugs and were taught to kill each other with music and given guns by the FBI. You guys think it's not true? Do the research, do the history, and look it up. This is what America was founded to do, to imprison the Hebrews. This is why Get Out of Babylon, 18th Revelation, is so poignant, because it predicts your current state. Doesn't matter if you live in the projects now or not. Now the entire black community is the project, because that mentality was brainwashed into project people. After 50 years of being in the project, they started tearing the projects down. That mentality goes out to all neighborhoods now. Do you see what I'm saying? To where now you don't have black neighborhoods in the country that don't have project mentality. Do you see what I mean? The value system and the moral system, not saying that everybody projects is bad, not saying that everybody in the projects now is up to no good, but it's the system and the dependence upon the system, and that system literally killing you in that environment, which spawns a generation of killers. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why the projects were always the toughest places in the city to be, because they were the experimental killing grounds for the Magogite ruling class. And then it so happened again that music began to come from these areas that took over the world. We're gonna get into that in the next video. We're gonna go ahead and get started back with the modern era in the next video. All right, you guys, so that's all I got for you. I appreciate those that hung out in the last video. Doesn't look like I had anybody to come back in this one, but I just wanted to finish up this concept, and then tomorrow we'll start on the modern era and what they do now in America to try to kill us. All right, you guys, shalom, shalom.